If your summer garden feels like a full-time job, then you're probably making one of these 6 mistakes. Hi, I'm John Valentino with Chip Valentino. He's my vice president in charge of keeping summers cool. After 45 years of working in Fresno's hot climate, we have learned how to not make these mistakes. So when things get hot, instinctively people want to water more. While that might be appropriate in some situations, keep in mind that nothing will kill plants or lawn faster than high heat and too much water. When the soil becomes saturated, it's like an anaerobic condition and essentially it can't breathe. There's no exchange of air and water, it's just stagnant. That's probably most prevalent in lawns in the summer, particularly cool season grass in warm season climates. You need to try to have the water be very even and not get waterlogged in any particular spot. If you have standing water or just saturated areas of the soil and this oppressive heat, that's really what breeds disease. So we want to stay away from that. In planting areas, we're trying to encourage deep rooting. The best way to encourage deep rooting is you do watering for long periods of time, as long as the water is being absorbed, but you don't do it frequently. You give the soil time to dry out in between waterings to where even the top is just barely slightly moist, or the top might even feel dry, but when you dig down an inch or so, there's moisture, and then that's about the right time to water again. So we've discussed the pitfalls of overwatering, but don't go too far the other way. There's problems there too, unfortunately. Underwatering can stress your plants, leaving them vulnerable to pests and disease. To avoid this common summer mistake, you'll need to figure out if you're watering the right amount. So you put factors together. If you get out and feel around, some people like to use moisture meters, which are probably not always accurate, but interesting. I prefer more of a soil probe, where you dig down and sample the soil at an inch below and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 inches below. And you look into how much water is being applied or the weather conditions. Then you put all of these things together and determine if it's from underwatering or an overwatering. There's one last watering mistake to discuss, and that's watering at the wrong time. If you're watering the right amount in the summer heat, but you're watering at the wrong time, it can still create problems in your lawn and your shrubs. The textbook right time, and sometimes we can't go by the textbook, but the perfect time to water is very early in the morning, right before the sun comes out, and then finish the watering as the sun's coming out. And the thinking there is we're applying water, there's no evaporation due to sun and stuff while we're applying it, so that gives it the greatest chance to soak into the soil. And since the sun's coming out right when we're done, water won't stand around, and water standing around is what creates fungal disease in the summer. You can be aware of that and not be able to do it. Some yards, and especially public landscapes that are big, they might have 20 stations, 20 individual valves that go on and water, and maybe they water for 30 minutes each, so that's 5 hours. You got to start in the middle of the night. There's no way to get everything watered before the sun comes up. So there are, some practical exceptions to it, but if you keep in mind the ideal, we'll do it if we can, and maybe we'll do it in those situations that are most sensitive to, say, fungal disease, like the lawn. If you have any kinds of pest and disease problems, that's one thing I'd adjust is watering time. Are you skipping mulch in your garden? That's like skipping sunscreen at the beach. Not using mulch is a gardening mistake, especially in the summer, that can create more work for you. Here are all the reasons why you want to regularly mulch your garden, and I might not even be able to list them all. There's so many. First of all, it protects soil from the sun. The soil can get sunburn, and the soil can be damaged by the sun in ways that impair absorption. A good mulch does conserve moisture in a way that really helps with not having to water as often, and also keeping the soil moist throughout its profile rather than this uneven drying out. And that's really good for plant growth. So mulching is an important part of allowing soil to function like it's supposed to function and feed plants properly. I know in the case of our products where we're trying to infuse the soil with life, it's amazing how much better the products seem to make for healthy plants when there's mulch over the top. How much faster all the beneficial stuff that we're putting in the soil works and more permanently. So the type of mulch isn't as important as mulch. There's lots of different things that'll work. I think people like to pick the ones that look the best, and I like that criteria. And there are some really attractive, dark, rich looking mulches that make it look like your soil is dark and rich looking, and plants look better with a contrast. I don't like any of the dyed ones, and I don't think the dyes are good for soil. But a natural kind of mulch, whether it's made from compost, green waste, cedar, Douglas fir, some people use newspaper. All of those are fine. I usually either use shredded cedar or walk-on bark, which is Douglas fir. The frequency applied really depends on how thick you've put it and how well it's holding up. The most frequent I would consider mulching is once a year, and the least is once every 5 years. The other thing is, if you have a planting style where we're planting heavily and plants are covering the soil, well, plants can protect the soil just like mulch can. Then the mulch isn't as important. It's when we have big blank spaces and we're trying to get things to grow. In those cases, we want to keep that soil mulched. Since it's hot, feeding your plants sounds like a great idea until you overdo it. Putting it all on your soil in the summer is like drinking too much coffee. Your plants get stressed and they crash hard. You really create gardens that are more subject to pest and disease if you're over fertilizing. In general, we don't promote using synthetic fertilizers at all, but there might be a time and place for them here and there, but you need to be very careful with them because they can really burn lawns and plants easily in the summer. Organic products in the summer are fine. Compost, compost tea, even thin layers of earthworm castings. We make a whole line of products that work really well in the summer and can't burn. We finally made it to the last summer mistake. I want to talk about gardeners' worst enemy, and that is weeds. If you don't kick them out early, they'll move in, start a family, and steal all your nutrients. If you avoid this mistake, you'll be on the path to fewer or no weeds. So the mistake in summer weeds is not having a strategy built around early intervention. We're training our landscape and our gardens to not have weeds. In a disciplined garden, we need to have a strategy about how we're going to limit weeds. The mulching is a good part of the strategy. We've talked about that already. As unpopular this is, pulling weeds is a strategy, or even hoeing them lightly when they're small makes a big difference. But some kind of strategy where we are addressing them as soon as they begin to develop. People are always asking me about organic methods of weed control, and there are some made from citrus peels and made from vinegar, things, in other words, high in acid, that in the summer are actually pretty darn effective because they burn the leaf. But with those products, discipline is needed. You need to apply them frequently. The healthier soil you have with a complex range of beneficial soil life, being bacteria, fungi, protozoa, good nematodes, the more complex life you have, the less weed pressures there are. Healthy soil and then this early intervention strategy, that's how to train your garden to not have weeds. Chip and I have learned recently, and you might find this hard to believe, but it's true, that if you subscribe to our channel, you have 78% less weeds. Now you know summer gardening doesn't have to be more work. If you've made these mistakes before, hit the like button, or if you liked our video, hit the like button. And if you want to discuss any of these mistakes, leave it in the comments below. There's still another part of gardening we haven't touched on much in this video, and that's the lawn. Click here to learn all about defeating and preventing lawn fungal diseases, which are very common in the summer when temperatures are high.